Hello, today I'd like to talk about agents for software development. And to give a little introduction of myself, my name is Neubig. I'm a professor at CMU, and I'm also the chief scientist at All Hands AI, where we're building open source software development agents. And another important thing is that I am a software developer myself, so I really enjoy, building software. And you can tell this because I am constantly, active on GitHub. I have my green bar pretty well filled up, like any, software developer working on open source projects would. So the question is, why do we want to build software development agents now? And I take a lot of inspiration from this quote by Mark Andreessen in his famous essay, Software is Eating the World. And basically what he said there is more and more industries are going to be running on software, and these are not just the software industry. There are other industries like, movies and agriculture and national defense and other things like this. And I think this was an essay that was written over 10 years ago now. But I think it rings even truer today than it did when it was originally written. And this is kind of evidenced by the fact that, for instance, if we look at the Nobel Prize winners for the Nobel Prize for Physics and Chemistry this year, these weren't people who were building particle accelerators or working in wet labs or something, but rather they were people who were writing software. So for example, Geoff Hinton won the Nobel Prize in Physics for coming up with fundamental advances for AI, and Demis Hassabis got the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for coming up with methods like AlphaFold to better understand protein structure. And I think that this is just going to change more and more as we have a more powerful AI in the future, and a lot of that AI is going to be based on writing software. So if we look at what's involved in developing software, there's a lot of things that are involved, and this is a figure from a very nice study from Microsoft Research where they actually surveyed a whole bunch of developers. And the typical things we think about, like coding, are actually a relatively small portion of the things that we do with software. So this is like writing code, implementing new features, and other things like this. But separately from this, a lot of time is spent on things like bug fixing, and testing, and documentation, and writing reviews, and other things like this. And then separate from that, there's lots of communication and even other stuff like eating and going to the bathroom and things like that. But you get the basic idea. There's a lot involved in making software. So now we have software development agents, and these software development agents can do a lot of interesting things. And so I'm showing an example of this through this movie here, where the agent can go out and do a job for you. But it's actually a lot more varied than that. So there's many, many different types of things that I personally use software development agents for all the time. And these include things like fixing bugs, of course, also adding new features, but all the other broad spectrum of things that software developers can do. So this includes things like creating apps from scratch, fixing failing continuous integration tests, fixing conflicts when you're in a collaborative development environment and one branch clashes with the other, writing docs. We even use software agents to help us deploy our services on the cloud and analyze data that we get for various purposes. So there's a number of ways we can do this, a number of interfaces through which we can do this. One of the most exciting ones is we can essentially autonomously resolve issues on GitHub. So when you've opened up an issue describing a new feature you'd like to have or a new bug that you would like to resolve, that's something that agents can do for you as well. And I'll try to give an example of something like this in our actual live demo. Then the question is, how promising is this? How much could this accelerate your workflows? And our software agent is called OpenHands. I'll show a demo of it shortly. But OpenHands, we of course are using OpenHands to write OpenHands, and it is the largest contributor to its own code base, as you can see by the contribution graph over the past month. And so really, if you can use software development agents well, they can really accelerate your workflow, and especially they can help you do all the things that you know you need to do but don't want to do, like make tests pass or write documentation or do refactoring or things like that. So why don't we go ahead and dive in? So let's go into a live demo. And just for illustrative purposes, I'd like to try to create an app from scratch and then maybe make a few modifications to it. So what I've done is I've created an empty GitHub repo monitor dashboard app. And I want to create kind of a personalized dashboard that I can look at and learn more at the beginning of my day. So I'll try to keep this simple just for the purposes of doing the demo quickly, but let me say I would like to get a Flask app that shows me some information important to me. It should include the time, the weather in Pittsburgh, PA, the number of issues opened and pull requests opened on the All Hands AI Open Hands repo in the past 24 hours. To access the GitHub API, you can use the GitHub token environment variable. Please use good programming practices. Make sure you add git ignore pyproject.toml tests and GitHub actions to run tests and linting. For linting, you can use rough and pre-commit. So basically, I gave it a task that it could do, and I also gave it some instructions about how it could do the task. And then finally, I'll say, when you run the program, please make sure that it works end to end by running the whole process from installation to testing. So this is a fairly decent portion of work, and it includes a lot of things that we kind of know we should be doing, good programming practices. These are things that will often fall by the wayside if you are just coming up with a simple app that you want to create yourself by hand. But because it's relatively easy for me to ask the agent to do this, I just went ahead and asked it to do all of those things. So we can see that it kind of came up with a plan. It realized it's in the monitor dashboard app directory, so it's creating the necessary file structure. Created the pyproject.toml file. It's gradually, writing this out. So writing out a big file takes a little bit of time. It's creating the main application file. So actually, while we wait for it to do the other things, we can see that it created the file there. Another thing that you can do in OpenHands is you can actually open up VS Code, your file editor, and see all of the stuff that it's working on creating. So we can see the app file that it created over here. Did a kind of clever thing and gave the coordinates of Pittsburgh, and it's calling the weather app. It says I'll need to get an API key for the open weather map demo. So I'm not sure if that will actually work in our demo here, because I'm not going to grab an API key on camera, but let's go. So it's running the test now. Okay, so you can see up until now all the little things on the right have been green. Now it got a red thing, and this kind of demonstrates the beauty of agents. So the agent actually went and tried to follow the install directions and ran this curl command. But what it realized is it needed to fix pyproject.toml to properly include the package information. So it's continuing running the tests. The test passed, and so now it's running the linter to clean up the code, fix the linting issues. And it's going through and editing all of the contents of the files. And while we're letting the agent work, I can also comment a little bit about this, which is, this time I asked it to create a Flask app, but I could have asked it to do a number of other things. Like I could have asked it to create a React app if we wanted a React app, or I could have asked it to write data analysis tools. So this is kind of a distinguishing factor between kind of no-code or low-code solutions for building apps from scratch and a kind of more generalist agent like the ones we're able to create nowadays. So yeah, it's cleaning up the linting errors that it had. And pretty soon, I think it should be finished. Okay, so the linting is finished. It's running the application to test it, and we can see that it actually pulled up this this dashboard here. So you can see the dashboard showed up on the app viewer, tells me the current time, and it has told me the GitHub activity over the past 24 hours on GitHub. So that's pretty nice, I think. It's getting a client here, but the problem, there's a few problems here. Number one, I think the design is a little bit ugly. So I can say, I'd like you to fix a few things. One, the design is a little ugly. Please make it nicer. Two, right now I get an error when the API key is not valid. Or let's say I get an ugly error. Make it a simpler error. 3. Could you actually write the names of each issue and pull request? And one other nice thing that I can do is I can actually take a screenshot of what the app currently looks like, and then drag it from my desktop into here. And then we can put the agent back on the task, and it will go and fix all of these issues for me. This may take a little while, so let's take a moment to let it work. Okay, so it looked like it finished with its work, and so we can see that it added a modern font, improved the card design, and other things like this. So let me see. So we can see that the dashboard, the font looks a little bit better, the error is better, and also all the activity is listed up here with links. So pretty good job. I'm pretty happy with this. So now the final thing I'll do is I'll say, okay, looks great. Let's push this to GitHub and create a pull request. And actually, I could have just pressed this button here to do that, but you can also write it out in text as well. And so the model is doing that. And so it's creating a new branch with a descriptive name and doing a bunch of other stuff like this. And when it finishes, it created a pull request with the GitHub API. And it's almost done. It should give me a link, and there we go. So we have the pull request open. It tells me all of the stuff it did, has all of the files. I already asked it to write GitHub continuous integration, so the continuous integration tests are running right now. I can look through the files. And normally I would be very careful and go through and review all of these files to make sure they're working. But in the interest of time right now, I will not do that. So I'll just say it looks good to me. I encourage you not to do this when you're actually working with agents because they make mistakes. And the GitHub CI is failing right now.
Ask the agent to please take a look at the failing GitHub actions on the main branch of this repo using the GitHub token that I have provided to you. Reproduce the problem by following the GitHub workflow locally, and then debug and fix the issue. Once it is fixed, send a pull request.
And so ideally, this will allow the agent to directly look at the problem that is failing on the GitHub repo and help debug the issue. This may take a little while, just like human debugging does, because it needs to go through the steps of pulling information from GitHub and debugging and other things like that. So you can see it's checking the failing GitHub actions on the main branch using the GitHub API. Okay, so now it's run the tests in linting and presumably has figured out what the issue is. And so now it is going in and fixing the issue. So you can see it's almost all the way through with testing and linting. So it looks like it has mostly finished the issue. And we can see it's opened a pull request here. Now we can wait a little bit to see if the tests pass. And actually, while we wait, why don't we ask our agent to please wait 60 seconds and then check if the tests on that PR passed. And so we can do that, but actually while I was typing that, it seems like our tests have passed here, so looks like we're good to go to make the pull request and fix our failing tests. So this is a good overview of how AI agents can not only help you create an app from scratch, but also fix tests and do other kind of cleanup work that developers need to do, but is not, necessarily the most fun stuff to do. So there you go.